I can't believe it, Tom. World of Warcraft, 20 years old.
Unbelievable, Marty. But there's also other games that are 20 years old, like Halo 2 or Half-Life 2 or, even The Sims 2.
There's nobody playing The Sims 2 still. I don't think so.
Hello, welcome to Talking WoW. My name is Tom. This is a podcast where we talk about World of Warcraft, believe it or not The Sims. Over there, that is my co-host, Marty. Hey, Marty.
I mean, we're not talking about Sims 2, but how about Sims 3? I played that one a lot.
None of those, Marty, none of those. We don't have time to talk about your other fantasies, or my fantasies, apparently.
I'm simply living the life that I don't live in real life.
But here we are, Marty. It's the landmark is finally here, and we're celebrating 20 years of World of Warcraft. And where do we even start with this? How do you even talk about 20 years in about 20 minutes? That's like a minute for every year.
One year a minute, yeah. So year number one.
Year one, we started.
Got into the game, played it, loved it.
20 years later, you're still here. That is the show, folks. But no, unbelievably.
The only thing that's changed is I don't love it any longer. Now it's just my addiction. I need to play it.
20 years later, I think you love it more than ever. And, looking back at the past 20 years, it's quite difficult, but this game has sort of ran parallel with our lives a little bit, hasn't it? You can sort of look back and go, oh, this moment in my life happened, and I was like, what expansion was I playing when that happened? That's sort of how a way to sort of measure time and sort of remember time as well. I definitely have moments in my life where I look back and go, when I like moved in with my partner, and I was like, oh yeah, I remember like moving in and doing those Mr. Pandera dailies, like, just these like strange World of Warcraft memories linked to like core memories as well. I don't know if you have something similar too.
Not in that particular regards, but I do have something I'm like specific TV series, for instance. I have linked to or music or something like that. Linked to specific expansions because maybe in that particular expansion I watched Scrubs season 4 or something like that, and if I rewatch that now, then my brain is just getting triggered. I'm like, oh yeah, that's when I did those horrible dailies from whatever expansion that had horrible dailies.
Oh my gosh.
Or something like that. And even music, some songs, because I just listened to them back then or something like that. So but
I mean 20 years is a long time, like even in the music industry. Music used to be good 20 years ago, somewhat good, and that's a totally different podcast, but it's just been a consistent, hasn't it, for the past 2 decades. And like, would you believe that when you first logged in all those many moons ago, like logging into Azeroth for the first time, that 20 years later you'd still be playing the same game?
No, not at all. I think back then well, it's a little bit weird, because how does that work? Because technically there has been other games where I've consistently kept playing them over the time, but I kept playing the next iteration of it. So for instance, let's take Assassin's Creed as an example, where there was a while where I played all, if a new one came out, I played it. So technically it's the same game updated, right? But you just
don't come in here. Don't come onto this podcast with your logic. Stop doing that.
The thing is, you just view it differently because it's a new game, whereas World of Warcraft is the same game. Even though that if you compare vanilla World of Warcraft to the War Within right now, it's like pears and apples. It's like so different games, So
if you think Marty's wrong, let us know in the comments about that strange theory.
But to answer your actual question,
yes, please, that would be wonderful.
No, I don't think I would have expected to be playing World of Warcraft 20 years later.
And I mean, we always joke about this, don't we? But we got to know each other through World of Warcraft. We wouldn't be sitting here right now recording a podcast talking about the last 20 years of World of Warcraft.
Probably
if I
not,
did World of Warcraft.
We met in a jungle, and I don't go to a lot of jungles in real life. You know?
Yeah, stay away from those. But it's quite funny. We were reminiscing about it, weren't we, the other day? Just, you know, I came into World of Warcraft with a group of, you know, people I knew online who played Diablo 2, and they literally had told me, like, they're playing World of Warcraft, they're rolling on this server, they're rolling Horde side, Marty representing that today, and, you know, this is where you got to go. And I remember not taking that information in fully, because I remember, you know, logging in for the first time, you make your character, don't you? And then you see that big list of servers and you're like, oh, hang on. What server did they say? Does it even matter? You know, probably not. So I clicked one which I thought it was. And then I remember, you know, several hours later, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. You know, I'm out here in the world. I think I'm like level 4, you know, I'm a big deal. And then I got a message to say, like, I was on the wrong server and I had to start again. I was devastated. Like, I was just like, you know, that emotional attachment you start feeling for like those characters that you just make in a new MMO or, you know, an online game. You just instantly just like, oh, I don't want to delete this character. But yeah, I had to restart. And, you know, maybe a good job I did, Marty, because if I hadn't have moved to the server I was supposed to be playing on with my friends, I might not have met you.
What a different world. Some say even a better world it would have been.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, if only I had just stayed on that other server. Might have been better for me as well. Better for all of us. Better for you, listener, as well.
But to be fair, it is one of those, you know, when you look backwards and you start, you know, what an odd chance, because as you said, we wouldn't have been right where we are right now. With our friendship and this podcast, if it wasn't for all these coincidences and things that were out of our hands, basically, because you were like had friends that were like, you need to be on this server, on this, no, and not just on this server, but also on this particular, you know, faction. And I had the same, where I followed a friend introduced me to the game. I was like, oh, this is amazing. I wanted to play Alliance. He was already playing Horde, so I was like, oh, okay, I guess I need to play Horde then. And that's how I ended up on the Horde side, and randomly ran into you one day. So
yeah. And there's going to be, I bet there's like so many people out there as well that, you know, have these moments of just pure coincidental events that just, you know, what if I hadn't done this and that, then I wouldn't have met this person. And then, you know, because you hear about people that met in Warcraft, they've got married, they've had families, they've had kids. There's so many stories like that. And we would love to hear stories in the comments, by the way. If you do have those, please share them with us.
Technically, I met my ex-partner through you guys as well, because if I hadn't met you, I wouldn't have been in that same place where I met my ex-partner. So, you know.
That is true. That is very true. And, you know, relationships have happened due to World of Warcraft. I have also been part of that in my 20-year journey. And again, you know, not everything always works out how you plan it to, Marty, is it? No. But it's just funny, you know, intertwining real life and World of Warcraft. And I sort of think back as well to sort of the early days, you know, and I started this game when I was in school. Like, I was like 16 years old. I was just finishing up school. And, you know, even that, just trying to get my head around that is quite hard. But I remember just, you know, how I looked at the game then and how I look at it now. It's just so different, because I remember, like, when I was 16, you know, all that really mattered was, you know, getting good gear, getting better. Wasn't, you know, I wasn't like a super social person. I didn't really know how to act towards other human beings, Marty. I didn't know that. Don't know if you noticed. And no. I remember just like my priority was, you know, getting better loot and things like that. And, you know, you look back 20 years and you go, well, I'm pretty sure those epic pants that I got for Molten Core didn't really matter, you know, in perspective. You know, 20 years later, it's like, actually, it's probably about the people that you met along the way, you know, the friends you made, and, you know, made a lot of friends. Marty's shaking his head like, nope, it's all about the epics. It's all about, you know, the people you met along the way. And we have done, you know, I met you, and then through that we met other people, you know, out in the world, and just, you know, with guilds, and that sort of led into, like, you know, meeting up in real life and meeting up regularly. especially for like New Year's parties and things like that in various countries across the world. And, you know, probably in the last, 5 or 6 years, the world has changed, and, people have got older and their priorities have changed. And, you still see a few people logging in sometimes, but I think, time moves on as well, and people move on from the game. Some people are still hanging around, Marty, like me and you. We're like the bad smell in the corner, but we're still here.
I've gotten older, but my priorities hasn't changed that much.
Yeah, still all about that. Wow. So, I mean, where could we even start with this? We've been talking for 10 years already, and just there's so many memories that I don't think we could talk about them all in this one episode. But I think back as well to those early days when I did like raiding with another guild, and like you still have it yourself, but just having that like core group of people that you log into the game with and play the game with and enjoy the game with. I look back very fondly on the classic days, the Burning Crusade days, and the Wrath of the Lich King days, because that's when I was probably raiding with a regular group of people. Mm-hmm. And those were magical times. Like there's nothing that can be said about like logging in with a group of other players, having a laugh, and like killing bosses. Like I don't think that feeling ever gets topped. And I remember like one time in particular when I took like my whole PC, like not a laptop, I took my whole PC round a friend's house, and we were doing our like one of our latest kill attempts on Ragnaros that night. And I remember I'd like taken everything, doing like a little LAN party almost at my friend's house, because he was playing Warcraft as well. He wasn't in my guild or anything. And I remember like sitting like in his house killing Ragnaros for the first time and being like very excited. He was probably wondering like what's going on, but I guess just like I couldn't imagine like picking up my computer these days and like taking it to somebody's house and playing World of Warcraft for the evening. But it just testament again to like how times have changed, but just sort of funny little memories that have stuck in your head.
Yeah, I mean, I have so many memories, and I think that the big thing for me is that World of Warcraft has made it so that I got a lot of memories in real life as well. But I don't know if we have time to talk about that as well. But if we're talking in game, I think that one of my biggest memories and that I cherish a lot is actually, you brought it up, Wrath of the Lich King. And actually killing the Lich King in our 10-man raiding guild, because that whole expansion was the whole expansion was a win in itself. The expansion itself was good. Before we entered the expansion, like towards the end of the previous expansion, our guild sort of, a lot of core people left, and other people were doomsayers and said that the guild was done. And I was like, nope, I refuse to let this guild die. And I assembled an officers team, and we recruited some new people on the way, and we actually got all the way through to the Lich King and killed him. So
saved the world, Marty.
We saved the world.
If it hadn't been for you, we'd all be running around as Death Knights now. So
exactly.
Thanks for that.
People do. Some people do, but that's their own choice.
Yeah.
But no, so that's like, so that whole expansion is just something special to me, and something that I something that I cherish, especially because there were so many naysayers before we even got into that expansion, and it feels good.
Yeah, I mean, we can get into like outside of the game as well, because I mean it's all good to talk about. I mean, like I'm saying, I think the biggest win I can take away from the 20 years is not just like what was accomplished in game, because there are some like great moments, like first boss kills and such, like that rush of adrenaline, but I don't think you can take away from the fact that the people you meet, the communities that you become part of. And I mean, right now we're in a a great community as well, with like the Dungeon Dojo and the people that we've met there, and meeting them in real life, going to community events, and just meeting people face to face that you share this common game together, but outside of that, it's it feels like more, right? That's what brings you together. But it's forging that connection with somebody, like having something in common to make that connection, is sort of a really nice thing, because it can be hard to do that in this world. So I very much treasure, you know, the people that I've met along the way, like, you know, in real life, in game, and that you've had sort of that closer connection with. And I'm sure we all have, like, we've all played this game for so long. And even people that haven't, you know, some people have come in at different times in the expansions. You know, some people are joining in Legion or Battle for Azeroth or even Shadowlands. And, you know, we all have our different entry points, and we all have different perspectives on the game as well. And I think, you know, it's sort of magical to sort of look back and go, yeah, you know, you sort of think you're special because you were there at the start, but really, you know, people that come in later, you know, they're also creating memories and, you know, creating connections as well.
Yeah. I mean, people who have been playing since the beginning of the game is a dying breed, like literally a dying breed.
Oh, Marty, don't remind us, you know, because it's 20 years. Like 20 years is a long time. And, you know, you think about it now, right? We're sitting here now and you think 20 years in the future.
It's so weird because if you've asked me in my 20s if I would be playing this game when I was in my 40s, I would probably say no back then, because, you know, I think that the whole, you know, how you view the world and yourself and how you know, how you're supposed to behave when you are an adult growing up. I think that has changed as well in the last 20 years, because I definitely am not living the life that I thought I would be if you asked me in the beginning of my 20s. But I enjoy it, I love it, and I wouldn't change it for anything, but it's definitely different. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, nobody saw that coming. And honestly, like sitting here right now, if we're playing this game for another 20 years, you know, 40 years of the same game, like that almost feels impossible, doesn't it? You know, right now, I mean, like another 20 years of this? Sure,
but if you asked me 20 years ago, I would have probably have said the same, you know. So
stick it in your calendar for the follow-up episode of this.
Yeah. So yeah, but no, I think this game has done so much for me personally as well, just in real life, because it as I said, it made me actually go travel, because I all of a sudden I don't think I'm a, you know, super explorer in the real world unless, you know, I have a good reason to go somewhere, like, and that would be if it's together with someone else.
Your map was definitely not uncovered fully.
And I'm like, I like travel, but I'm just not. I don't work traveling alone. I need to have someone with me. I've tried traveling alone and it just doesn't work for me. So all of a sudden having these people around Europe and being like, oh, I can go to this country and I will actually have someone I can meet up with. And then afterwards I can go to this country and have someone I can meet up with. That was, you know, a game changer for me. And it was so amazing to go around and or travel around and meeting people, and then not only seeing other countries, but meeting, you know, friendly faces there.
Yeah, and also, you know, most importantly, getting a free place to stay, which
helps.
You know, saves a lot of gold, doesn't it?
It does. It was not everywhere. I also stayed at hotels, but it definitely helps when you can just, you know, crash someone's bed.
Yeah. I don't know, like we have some great memories of like meeting up with people, especially around New Year's. Sort of became a tradition, didn't it, of like meeting up. And, you know, I remember like one particular year we had like this big Hearthstone LAN party as well with, you know, everyone that we had met up with, and you know, just the shenanigans that you got up to sort of every year. And it was just like an event, you know, every year, like, oh, I can't wait for New Year's. And, you know, we maybe don't keep it up every year now because the world has changed.
Life has changed.
You know, things have got a little bit more difficult as you get older to sort of, you know, keep on top of that. But, you know, there's a group of us that still stay in touch. I see Marty like every day. I talk to Marty every day, almost have for nearly the past 20 years. You know, it's sort of weird, and, you know, ending up like, you know, sitting here talking about the last 20 years, and it's just very surreal, isn't it? Just very strange that here we are. This is the hand we were dealt, and I'm happy for it. You know, I'm glad for it. And I think, again, you sort of say that it was something that helped you maybe get out into the world. And I know myself, being 16 when I started this game and being very, very shy, very like really lacking communication skills. And I remember, you know, those first times, like jumping on a voice channel with somebody, like when you were raiding or doing group content, like there was genuine fear, right? There was just like this fear about speaking to other people, because you weren't used to it. Now it's the norm. Like jumping on a Discord or jumping on a call with people.
It's really strange though, because I feel like these days I feel like the barrier to start talking to someone I haven't really talked to before online is harder now than it was back then. So I sort of feel.
Oh, you think so?
I've digressed 100%. So.
What do you mean it's harder to talk to people? Like
I think it's just if it's someone I don't know. I mean, obviously guildies and stuff, it's no problem. But I got into a Danish guild at some point, and just jumping on Discord and just being, hey, here I am. Let's just chat to people I haven't really met or talked to too much yet. That was a big step or hurdle I needed to get over. Where I feel like when I was younger, it was just, hey,
You had no fear.
Yeah.
So we sort of switch roles there, Marty, maybe then.
Yeah. You're leeching my powers.
I thought you actually meant the barrier of entry as in, like, when we were first playing Warcraft, like, we had to, like, pay for, like, a Ventrilo server or a TeamSpeak server. No. Like, it was, like, we had to, oh my goodness, it was like we were paying money to talk to each other. That's how much we liked each other back then as, guildmates and, people that we played with. And it's a different world. Like 20 years later, it's a different world. But here we are, still very excited, very passionate about the game. And, it's changed so much. It has changed so much. And I think, it will be interesting to see how it evolves even more to sort of keep up with the gaming standards and like precedents that are being set in the industry. And, obviously Warcraft had to change, I guess, to keep up with how people play games. And I don't know, like it's still somewhat recognizable, and we've got Classic there as well if you ever want to go back and dip your toe in to what it was like.
But looking forward to at least 6 more years, because we need to finish the the World Soul
Need
Saga.
to finish the story, right? Before we get so old we can't actually remember how it all started.
It's difficult enough today.
Obviously, we could probably talk for 20 more years about 20 years of World of Warcraft. This has just been a little ramble between me and Marty. But again, as I mentioned during the show, we'd love to hear your stories or some of your memories in the comments. Feel free to share whatever you feel comfortable with. We would love to hear from you. We may even make a special episode in the near future about that as well. And again, yes, you can find us on YouTube, Talking WoW. We're on Blue Sky, Talking WoW. So feel free to drop us a little comment or message there. I've been Tom.
I've been Marty.
And we've been Talking WoW for 20 years.
Thanks for tuning in, champion. Did you enjoy this episode of Talking WoW? If so, why not drop a review on your podcast catcher of choice, or leave us a comment. You can find Talking WoW on
Blue Sky
or YouTube over at Talking WoW. Hope to see you again soon.